The first time I played Half-Life 2, it really opened my eyes. Did you catch it? I remember that first playthrough very clearly. The game was a blast. The combat was great, the guns were fun to use, and it was satisfying to watch enemies ragdoll after you took them out. I always heard high praise for the series, and Half-Life 2 even won Game of the Decade at the Game Awards, which really made me want to see what the fuss was about. I was met with awesome characters and even physics puzzles that gave every object their own weight. I've never seen something like this before, and I would argue that no game has done it quite like Half-Life 2 ever since. Even the level design. Everything seems so natural and dynamic. It goes from directing you through lights, color, and leading lines, something that film is also known for utilizing, but also directing you towards interesting things you might want to look at or check out. Okay, let's go back. The clip I showed at the start is what did it. I came to a locked door and all I had to do was shoot the lock. The giant lock on the door wasn't to show me that I wasn't supposed to go this way, or that I needed a key to get past, or that the area I was currently in was totally optional. All I needed to get through was shoot it. This wasn't immediately clear my first time playing the game. Why? Well, to my detriment, I previously played games that didn't let me interact with the environment in a way that you would naturally think to. Most games, especially some of the older ones, are pretty limiting when you think about them at a deeper level. Yes, you are the main character and the world literally revolves around you, but the game only really allows you to interact with certain things, like weapons, throwable objects, key story items, just to name a few. Everything in the game is created, which means that the way your character interacts with everything is also created. There is nothing natural about a video game's world, which is why I never thought of naturally interacting with this virtual world previously. You can only do things that the developers plan for, in one way or another. A good example of this is breakable walls or chandeliers. Walls with very distinct visual cracks or another distinct trait can be broken to reveal a path, a trope that games still use to this day. Chandeliers is a very common thing in games that typically allow you to break the chain, if at one point there will be enemies below it. Not all games have this, but it's another well-known game design trope that gets implemented more often than not. Even vehicles. How many times have you played a game and see perfectly intact vehicles that you'd expect you can drive, but can't? The only reason you'd expect to drive them in the first place is because you can drive others in the game, but not these ones. Typically, developers would try to be very obvious when a vehicle isn't drivable, by giving it a flat tire or just be destroyed entirely. Too many games lean into the park of having the environment and world, things that are completely separate from you as the player and what you're allowed to do. It exists for you to play within, while also setting some strict rules. These typically involve invisible barriers, trying to hide places the game hasn't planned on you having access to. Steep slopes that do something very similar, but do it in a much more natural way. You can't get your footing, so you must stay where you are. And the infamous one of having blocked off paths, which is almost always just a visual thing. The presence of an invisible barrier, but to communicate to you that there are things in your way, being the reason you can't access that area of the map. Games with a minimap have this illusion instantly broken, as only playable areas are displayed on it. You can, however, hit glowing buttons and control panels to open doors and other passageways. These are few and far between and are almost always totally scripted, meaning these must be interacted with to advance the game any further. These traditional style games that contain these methods of game design are like outdoor prison yards. High walls that limit where you're able to go, but things within it that you're free to interact with the sky visible to give you that false sense of freedom. That's all games are at the end of the day. Contained experiences with various limitations that stop you from truly playing how you want. Some games are getting better at hiding that fact, but most of the time, the characters, story, gameplay, and all of its elements are there to hold your hand and make sure you find your way to the next objective. When we play games, it seems like the ones that tend to resonate more with the player are when it allows you to do things that you'd naturally want to do. Games that let you shoot the lock. Please leave the video a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe.